Well, hello, everybody in Rock and Roll Confessional Land. Hello, CW.
Hello, Rita Wild.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Awesome. And I can't wait for this episode because this is really exciting because, well, we'll just say it. Rudy Sarzo is just one of those guys that, A, he's got some great stories, and B, is really, really cool, down-to-earth kind of guy. So.
Yeah. I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years, but, I just that stuff from meeting him. And then there was one time at Irvine Meadows that I was asked, along with Mark Felsott, who was doing local music program at that time, and also our music director at that time, Ruth Pinedo, to go accept a platinum award from Quiet Riot at Irvine Meadows on stage.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, it was cool. And, Kevin did something weird to me. I won't explain it because
Kevin was a weird kind of guy.
Kevin was interesting. But Rudy is just so down to earth, and I forgot just how inspirational he was and is. And so I just thought, wow, he'll be a great subject. So, growing up in Cuba and then playing bass for so many different bands. So there's some crazy good stuff with Rudy Sarzo.
Yeah, I remember seeing them. I think I was actually at that show. I think a lot of us were invited to go to that show, but that was really, really fun. It was like when they were just like starting off. They'd just gotten hot, and I think everybody was playing them. I think even wasn't Top 40 even playing Quiet Riot at that time?
Come on, Feel the Noise. Yeah,
like everybody was playing those songs, and it was really one of those big party, everybody's having fun kind of concert. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So here we go with our interview with Rudy Sarzo.
That's it. I'm ready. Okay.
Hi, Rudy.
Yeah. Hi, CW. How you doing? Hi, Rita. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
I have to be honest and say, I think Rudy and Carlos were my first on-air interview with rock stars at KLOS.
Oh my God! Really? Oh my God!
Yeah.
Ooh. I'm just surprised that whoever was doing publicity for Quiet Riot let us talk.
Yeah, that was different for you guys at that time.
Yeah, it was usually Kevin who did all the interviews. So yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Well, you guys, continue to always say hi and smile, and I appreciate that.
Of course, yeah.
And thank you so much for taking your time to talk with us on Rock and Roll Confessional. Go back, through your life and talk about things. Basically, how are you doing with the pandemic and everything?
After being on tour for 40 years, I started out in 1981 with Ozzy. I'm at the point in my life that I really enjoy a balance, which means, going out on the weekends, playing, then I fly home Sunday or Monday, whatever. So I'm home for like half of the week, and I'm on the road. So what I've done now is actually double up my projects. So because I'm home, and for the last few years, that's what I do. I play on the weekends, I fly out, and then when I'm home, I'm doing different projects, recording. I got my radio show on Monsters of Rock Radio, 6 Degrees of Sarzo. And so now I do more interviews because because before people had to come down to the station. So they had to be in LA. Now it's like I can get anybody just like you around the world just schedule it on Zoom, and here we go. We have an interview going,
That's
so
excellent.
I've been busy doing that. I have other projects, music related, animation, and just going back to learning. I've been, going on YouTube, which is the greatest educational resource right now. There's websites you can actually go and sit there and be part of a school curriculum on music. And just like if you were in the classroom, teachers do that. And it's just amazing, how much information is being shared, nowadays, so so if you really treat the internet for the positive influence that it can have in your life, you can actually gain so much more from it, it's incredible.
Use it for something positive. Yeah. As opposed to the negative.
What are you still learning, Rudy? Are you learning music?
Music, yeah, expanding, growing, yeah. It's what's really interesting is that every single musician that influenced me, the people that were thinking outside the box, is because they saw things as they were and then reimagined them as they could be musically. And that goes for any instrument. I'm not really just influenced by bass players. I'm influenced by every instrument that's that I enjoy listening to. Bagpipes, not so much.
But you used to play other instruments, right? Didn't you used to play like trumpet or trombone?
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, going back to music education in school back in the 60s, we didn't have the rock camps and things like that where kids can actually go and learn music. Or play rock and roll, play some of the classic rock and get that musical foundation, but specifically in the rock genre. Back in the day, it was basically marching band, and whatever music, and so it was like. As a matter of fact, my first year of college, I had music as my major, and then I changed it to my major became mass communication. I wanted to get into either radio, television, or motion picture directing and producing. And but again, I was playing in clubs at the same time in Miami, and the huge club scene because of the tourism. So there were bars and clubs everywhere. So it was pretty. If you could play, you could get a gig. So my playing was more advanced from actually learning songs by ear that would come on the radio that I had to add to the playlist of our band than the pace that I was learning in school. It was very slow. So I said, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to change my major. Fast forward like 40 years later, actually more than that, because I'm talking about early 70s. So, like 45, whatever years later, I actually can learn at my own pace. I can go on the fast track and okay, get the foundation of what I already know, make sure that it's solid, and then just build on that.
Now, do you read music? Because I know that you taught music for a while.
Yes. I used to read. Sight reading was one of the first things that I learned in school. But then again, it just you have to read every day. You have to sit down and read charts and keep it up. And I've never been in a band that anybody handed me sheet music ever.
Wow.
Ever. It was just like, okay, we have these songs and you either learn them or play what you can imagine playing, create basically.
One thing that I always loved about your playing is that not only being great at what you do, but you treat the instrument as a part of yourself, an extension of yourself. You have fun with it. You're fretboarding and playing like this and, using all sorts of different things.
Yeah, essentially it is what you just mentioned. It's an instrument to express your emotions. Music is a set of frequencies and emotions. And if you cannot connect with what you're playing, then you have to find a way how to do that. Maybe I really think that every human being that is breathing can actually connect with that emotion, with that frequency that we hear. I mean, we travel around the world and we play in front of audiences that English is not their primary language. And just because of the emotion of the music, the frequencies, the vibration, and the way that is being performed, it connects around the world, and hopefully it will connect beyond that into
absolutely.
the universe. I don't want to get too far off.
It's okay. We had John Anderson on, so we can talk with John Anderson. We can definitely handle you.
Okay.
I was going to say, next to love, music's the international language.
Yeah, but music is love. Music is love. I mean, it's there might be some genres of music that might be a little might not have as much love into it as we and it's all harmonic structures. If you hear certain harmonic structures, immediately evokes love and compassion and tenderness. And then you hear certain harmonic structures that convey maybe anger and frustration and negativity and things like that. But they're all related. They're all part of the same musical structure.
I love that.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say, even things that can be conflicting at some point in a perspective, they can all be in harmony if you put them in the right place.
Let's hope the world gets on that level soon.
Yeah.
You're very spiritual, aren't you?
Well, spirituality. Let's put it this way. I look up in the sky, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out that there's a power greater than we are. I mean, and there's actually an order to the universe. The universe is not chaotic. Otherwise, there will be planets crashing into each other all the time. There's a balance in the universe. That's why there's so many galaxies, so many stars, so many planets, so many suns, and probably so many lives, existence beyond our own. I don't think that we're alone in this.
No, absolutely.
No, we're not. And there is the universe that keeps expanding continuously. It's never stopped expanding. And then there's a force, a power that has created all of that and keeps creating it as we speak. And yes, so I believe in that.
Is it infinite?
It's infinite, and it really does not have a name that it has given itself. It's we humans, we need to connect with it, and we give it a name. Sometimes it has different names, like God has different name, and for different people, I call it God. But it's very big to the point that should it be named something that big, but as an entity, yes, I guess, it's in our culture, anything that exists must be named
and categorized.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, even Prince, when he lost the right to his name, he became formally known as Prince. So he's got an identity to it,
It was just too hard to write that symbol,
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to call him for dinner, too.
Yeah. You've had such an interesting life, Rudy. You, toured with some of the biggest and some of the best. But I want to start off, with your childhood. You're from Cuba, and, you grew up there during the missile crisis, and then your family went to Florida. What was it like at that time, and what do you feel about what's going on with Cuba now?
Yeah, we actually left in September 1st, 1961, right after the Bay of Pigs, right before the missile crisis. So I was actually in Miami when I witnessed all of the military movement going towards the Key West, because that was going to be their launch pad. That's the closest point from the United States to Cuba. And so I witnessed all of that, but as a child and with less news outlets than we have nowadays. If you really want to find out certain things, you have so many options, so many places. Back in the day, we had 3 major networks, and they all basically said the same thing in the newscast. And what was it? The 6 o'clock news,
Yeah.
And so it was, so I knew something was going on. I just didn't have the details that we can actually get nowadays, from different sources, and then make up our own conclusion of what's actually going on, And as far as what I feel about Cuba, what happened was when my family left in 1961, we lost our Cuban citizenship. That was kind of like common with any Cuban refugee. And as a matter of fact, 40 years ago, when I toured with Ozzy, I was stateless. So I landed at Frankfurt Airport in 1981 with no passport because I was not an American citizen yet. And I was greeted when I went to go through customs, and everybody in the band, the crew, they showed their passport and their visa. When it came to me, I just gave them a re-entry permit from the United States. Basically, it was to let me back into the United States. And this is 81, the middle of hijackings that were going on in Europe, and airplane hijacking. And so, here comes the machine guns, and here they come, and they take me away and they put me in a room. you know, and fortunately, our tour manager was able to buy his way out, basically buy a visa and, apologize and, and whatever. So as soon as I got back to the United States, I applied for my citizenship and got my passport. So, it's been 60 years since I left. And this year is going to be 60 years. And I got to tell you, I really do not have any desire to go back to my country of birth as a tourist. I will not be considered a Cuban citizen, born native. So that's okay.
How was music back then in Cuba when you were a child? There wasn't really a lot of rock and roll, was there? And I'm wondering if you follow it now, are things any different?
Well, actually, we did have rock in Espanol in Cuba.
Oh,
we have
wow.
rock and Spanish artists. Rock has really an interesting history in Latin America. There's a documentary on Netflix called Rompan Todo, which means break everything, that gives you the history of it. So in the 50s, yes, each Latin country had their own version of the Latinos playing rock and roll, in their own country. And we were basically, they were, emulating, but so was everybody else. And, in the 50s rock and roll, it was really like a formula, going on, basically created by Little Richard and Chuck Berry. And everybody follows suit, Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis and everybody. So yeah, that was happening. And then as soon as the revolution came, they not only music, but also instruments like the saxophone, they became undesirable, playing this because it was considered an American instrument,
Yeah.
Wasn't
it banned? Was the music banned at that time?
Latin jazz was already a major force in music and in Cuba. So unless it had percussion, and this is from the people that actually were the musicians at the time, after I left, that wanted to play jazz, not necessarily rock and roll. Rock and roll was not really accepted in Cuba. But jazz, yeah. But you have to have percussion. It had to be Latin jazz, not anything else. But like if you wanted to play, like Miles Davis or Charlie Parker, anything that traditionally did not have percussion, like let's say Dizzy Gillespie did, then you would have to add the percussion to it.
You're quite the historian. I love that.
I'm an old guy. I was there.
No, but you remember, and you think, and you continue to use your brain. That's what's fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the book Off the Rails. This came out 2006.
Oh, yeah. First, it was a self-published because I lost my original publishing deal because of conflict of interests. And so I had the book, it was ready to go. And I discovered this back in 2006, Amazon had a branch that would do self-publishing. And that was like the very, very beginning of self-publishing. And I did that for a couple of years. Then it was picked up by a publisher who actually, the text is the same, but re-edited the book with photos and layouts and everything. And it had a different cover. And then that deal was done 7 years after that. And that I regained my license because it was a licensing deal. And that I've been self-published ever since. And it's great because now I can reach out with Kindle around the world. People can actually download it and read it and or print,
Let's talk about your friendship with Randy Rhoads, if you're okay with that. That's what a lot of the book is about. You guys just had a real special friendship, and he was the one that got you the gig. Well, actually, he was a member of Quiet Riot. That's what I got confused on, because Quiet Riot's first album I thought was Mental Health, but actually, you guys had 2 albums out before that were just in Japan, and Randy was in the band then.
Yeah. Having the Japanese deal back in the 70s was kind of like releasing a song for free on the internet. You don't really have a label, you know what I mean? So, and it's not officially an album or a release, because Billboard did not even recognize, the international charts. And I don't even think it charted anyways. It was just released on Sony Japan, and that was it. That was it. I was having an interesting conversation with Rick Nielsen because Life at Budokan was basically something like that. And for some reason, somebody in the company said, oh, yeah, let's take that live record and release it domestically in the United States. So that's how Life at Budokan became, also, and that was like the first big hit, I Want You to Want Me, live version. So now all the live versions, became bigger hits than
the studio
versions.
Yeah.
But that was, unfortunately, that was not the case with Quiet Riot. There was no label interest in the United States to release what was released in Japan. So as far as Billboard goes, we did not even exist. That version of Quiet Riot.
And so that's how you got to know Randy and stuff like that. And what was it? I loved how you talked in the book that when you were going on tour, that you and he would get up early in the morning and go out and explore the city that you were in. I love that.
Yeah, this is days before having internet and social media. Otherwise, we'll be like down at the restaurant, ignoring each other, on our phones.
Right.
You want to go to
Communications gotten so great.
Yeah. And nowadays, anything you can get at the mall, you can get on Amazon and have it delivered, so different times. And I really miss those times because there was more humanity to our existence. But then again, there's a lot of humanity going on the internet. Look at us. We're sharing thoughts and ideas, that anybody in the world has an opportunity to actually experience it for as long as it's available online. It could be 1,000 years. Infinite. It could be. Yeah.
What was it like for you when you went to Ronnie James Dio's band and Whitesnake? When you joined a band like that, how do you dive into, I guess, learning all the music and getting in sync for a tour like that?
Yeah.
It seems like it would take quite a bit of work.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Actually, the sequence was, okay, if we're going to take a Quiet Riot with Randy Rhoads, that led for me to be with Ozzy.
Mm-hmm.
Then from Ozzy, I went back to playing with Kevin. And then at this time, now you have Frankie and Carlos added. So it was the Mental Health record. Then Whitesnake was the opening band for Quiet Riot in 1984. That's how I met David and, the guys in the band. So that led me to joining in 87, right? And then in 2003, that's when I joined Dio. But to answer your question, how I prepared myself, like I mentioned before in our conversation here, I grew up playing bars and transcribing by ear, That really developed my sense of like understanding what I hear. I can hear things and then I play them because I had no other choice. I couldn't afford to buy all the records. As a starving musician living at home with my folks, playing the bar scene, which was not really paying that much money, but it was a great experience. So let's say if we needed to add like Funky Broadway to our set list, well, Funky Broadway is going to get played at least every half hour on your local AM station because it's a top 40 song. So, okay, here you go. So I'll listen to it the first time and I'm playing along with it. Okay, well, let me hear it again a couple more times and that's it. I learned Funky Broadway and I got to play it that night. So it's the same process. We did a record, Ozzy. It was Tommy Aldridge, Brad Gillis, who joined after Randy's tragic death. And we finished the Diary of a Madman tour with him. And one of the things the last thing that I did with them was record Speak of the Devil. And we have 5 days to learn all of these Black Sabbath songs. 5 days. And that was not easy because they're not like your typical arrangements, pop arrangements. So here comes a intro, verse, B section, chorus, and then maybe a bridge after the second chorus, things like that. So there's a formula to that. Not with Black Sabbath. It's not like a whole different territory. But having had the skills to retain information, and I still do, it really, the training of doing that for so many years in bars, bar bands, it really, really helped me.
In your book, you talk a lot about touring with Ozzy, and all I can say is, people, you should get the book because, wow. Some interesting times there, very interesting times that you go into depth in. One thing I my experience with Sharon Osbourne is that she was always if she promised something, she delivered on it. And it sounded like in the book that she did that all with you and the band also. If she made a promise, it was delivered on. And that's got to be said for something. But Ozzy just seemed to be Ozzy. But it's just like, is the Ozzy propped up? Is that what he really wants to do? I'm not sure.
One thing that I learned from being in the tour bus for 2 tours with Ozzy and Sharon, but Sharon was very busy. It was kind of like, I grew up watching the Ed Sullivan Show. And one of my favorite acts on the Ed Sullivan Show was the guy with the spinning plates. He's got like poles and he's got all these plates and he's spinning them, right? By some point he's got like 10 plates spinning at the same time, And sometimes I look at life like that. You have so much going on and you cannot drop a plate. You have to keep spinning them. And that was basically Sharon. Sharon has so much to deal with, not only the business of supporting as a manager and as an investor, because I got to tell you, her family was not only the management company, but they also owned the label Jet Records. So there was a major investment in making sure that Ozzy as an artist was going to be a success. Also, that Ozzy as an artist was
going to stay alive.
Which was the other plates that she had to keep spinning on a daily basis, So I have so much respect and love and gratitude, for them, for all of them, because I got to tell you, Ozzy, he drank, but he also had some moments in between the drinking that he was not drinking. And I got to tell you, he's a brilliant man, very loving, very funny, one of the funniest guys you've ever want to hang out with, a mentor. He really tried to take this guy here who was 30 years old, which is pretty old. My first band was Ozzy at 30 years old. Take him, who I had just been sleeping on a floor, Kevin DuBro's apartment, and just, teach me the ropes as quickly as possible because there was a lot of stuff that I had to catch up with. That somebody who had been in the business for at least 15 years successfully, like he had, he could really show me. And he did. He did.
He could show you all the ropes.
Well, either by sitting down and having conversations with me, mentoring me, or actually, showing me what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
Like crapping in a restaurant or a hotel lobby or something.
Yeah, but that was a story that he told us. I actually did not witness it, but even though I witnessed a lot of stuff, but it was just telling us the story about that. Yeah.
Okay, everyone, it's time for a quick break from Rudy. We want to remind everybody that our podcast relies solely on support from our listeners. We get no other money. So we would like to pay our bills, because if we don't, we will all go to jail. So we're asking for your help. If you are a fan of rock music, rock stories, a Rita Wild fan, or even a CW fan, I think there's only one so far. Please become a Patreon rock star, roadie, or groupie. This means that we ask you to make a small pledge a month. It can be as little as $1. That's $12 a year. If you can afford that, please go to our support tab on our website, rockandrollconfessional.org. Rocks, or just find us in Patreon, and that's spelled Patreon, and just make a small pledge. All right, Rita Wild, got some good trivia question for our folks today?
I hope it is. Rudy, who we've been listening to, Rudy Sarzo, has a brother named Robert. What band did they play together in? Was it Quiet Riot? Was it Ozzy's band? Was it Whitesnake? Was it Jeff Tate of Queensryche, his band? Who was it?
That's a good question. So we'll give you the answer after the second part with Rudy Sarzo. Here you go.
At that time, it's kind of interesting because Ozzy wasn't the Ozzy that we know now. I mean, he was obviously Ozzy, Black Sabbath, and then he was basically trying to start a solo career. And when you guys first started, it was playing out, small little places like 500, maybe 1,000 people. And then that progressed to huge stadiums. That must have just been a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, all thanks to Sharon. And of course, great records that were recorded before Tommy Elders and I joined the band. The music, Randy Rhoads' performances, he had such an incredible overnight sensation following because back in the day, and actually the small places that we played at were theaters. We were in the theater circuit on the first tour, and it wasn't until later on the second leg of the Blizzard of Us tour when we had Def Leppard opening up for us, because the first half was Motorhead. Second half of the tour was Def Leppard. Not until then that we actually start playing arenas in certain markets.
Oh, there were just so many things. It's just like the whole how everything exploded. I mean, he was like for a while there the hottest thing. It was stuff like the chicken incident, the bat incident, the dove
bad
incident.
Bad
incident.
Or the US Festival incident, which you weren't playing with him at that time.
No, actually, I didn't see Ozzy at the US Festival.
I thought he socked you because you were back with Quiet Riot or something, and he came and punched you.
No, that was not at the US Festival. At the US Festival, the band, nobody really cared about the band. We were just thrown in there like 2 days before the US Festival, because Barry Fay, the promoter, had just moved Joe Walsh to the following day, more like the David Bowie's Stevie Nicks day. And there was an opening, and we had just finished our last show we were doing a mini tour opening up for Scorpions, who were warming up to the US Festival. And the last show was in Denver, where Barry Fay is based out, or was based out of, his promotion company. And he sees the band, us, Quiet Riot, and he goes, "Hey, I got this opening at the US Festival. You guys want to do it? It's in a couple of days." So we said yes, and then we figured out the logistics. We played at noon. We had to get back on a plane right after the show, so we could fly to the next city that we were supposed to be at originally. The next gig somewhere in Texas. So no, I didn't see anybody. We just did the show. We got in a van around 10 o'clock for a noon show. By 1 o'clock, we were out of there.
Wow.
What you're talking about actually happened in Kalamazoo, Michigan in '84, when we already sold records and means something, because Quiet Riot didn't mean anything. in March, was it May of '83? Yeah.
Let me ask you, Rudy, when you're at the bottom of those stairs and you've got the stage in front of you, and there's whatever was at the US Festival, I think 80,000, something like that.
Oh, no, more than that.
Was there more?
Yeah.
But I want to know what is going through your head and your body when you're like getting ready. You hear, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Quiet Riot," and then what goes on in your head and your mind and everything?
Yeah, by the time that I did that, it was actually 350,000, give or take, 1,000 here and there. The band had been out doing that set for a while now. We started the weekend of March 18th or 19th touring. We did a few shows at the Roxy, and then we went upstate to the San Francisco area, and then we did the Scorpion tour. So we were, we knew our songs. We knew, we were confident that as long as the gear was working, it was going to be fine. And myself, I just make sure I go to the bathroom before I hit the stage, and I'm fine.
Stage prep. Go to the bathroom.
That's right. Go to the bathroom. That's it.
Good stuff.
So, Rudy, at the end of the show, we do what's called the bonus round. We're just going to throw a bunch of wacky questions at you.
Okay.
And good luck in answering them. It should be really easy, hopefully. What was your first album?
That I bought or that I played on?
First album you bought.
Oh, that I bought. Okay, Paul Revere and the Raiders' Greatest Hits. And it was a Father's Day gift to my dad. Only because I needed to accomplish two things. I needed to get him something that I needed to get my dad something for Father's Day, and then I needed to get something that I wanted.
That you could borrow.
Yeah. And
So
I'll
smart.
never forget my poor dad's look on his face when he unwrapped the record and see these 5 guys in white leotards on the cover.
That was the one that had the red background, right? The red background.
Yeah, and they were wearing, Paul Revere and the Raiders. They had these Raiders with white leotards outfits on, and my dad is, "¿Qué es esto?" Which means, "What is this?" And he just like put it.
Did he hand it back to you?
No, he just kind of like discarded it. That was it.
That was good stuff. What was the best concert that you attended before you became a rock star yourself?
Ooh, best concert I attended. Wow, that is such a good question, because I'll tell you, if you put it in a sense of what led me from one place to the other, what had the biggest impact on my life was it was a David Bowie concert, November 17th, 1972. And I recall that date and the show because that's the first time I ever saw Frankie Benali play drums in Florida. This was at Pirates World, Florida. And I saw him. I did not know who these guys were, because usually when you open up back then, for a national, international recording act, usually the opening band was part of the tour package. But no, with not in this instance. This instance was like the promoter needed to put. Originally, they weren't even booked for that gig. And then something happened to the original band that was going to open out for Bowie. And then they asked Ginger, which was Frankie's band, to play. So they showed up, and I'm watching them playing, and I couldn't believe how great the drummer was. Everything about him was outstanding. I didn't know who these guys were. I didn't know that they were from Florida or whatever, Fort Lauderdale area. So the next day, I'm at a bar called the Flying Machine, which was like a local rock hangout. And I'm talking to a girl, and this is my birthday. The next day was my birthday, November 18th. And I'm talking to her, and she goes, "Oh, that's one of the guys from the band Ginger. They opened up for Bowie last night." And I go, "Oh, wow, I saw them." So you know what? I was so impressed that I went to Frankie thinking that he was the bass player, because, it was a big venue. I really couldn't tell from far away who, what his face looked like. And behind the drums. And so I'm telling him, "Yeah, my name is Rudy, blah, blah, blah. I saw you guys yesterday. You guys were awesome, especially your drummer." And he lets me talk and rave about the drummer, and he's smiling. And then when I'm finished, he goes, "Hi, I'm Frankie. I'm the drummer." And, 38 years, friendship and playing together, and, in so many incarnations, because we started playing right after that together. And we even toured in the Midwest before we came out together to Los Angeles. And, so that was really, I will have to say, that's my favorite concert.
And he just passed back in August, unfortunately.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Who would you want to meet that you've never met, alive or dead?
It keeps changing.
Well, today.
And last week.
It keeps changing. And I'm not going to say any spiritual figures because, once I pass on, I will meet the spiritual figures, or I have probably met them already, But I would say, when I meet people, my favorite people to meet are people that, for a very selfish reason, I want to thank them for how much of an impact they've had on me. And once in a while, I get that people, will send me a message on the internet telling me, any of the bands or my playing, and it's something that I've learned through the years that my heroes are just human beings.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, and I've met my heroes of mine, even after I've had some success, that they just initially wanted to have a one-on-one relationship with me, not based on any of our musical successes, but just on a human.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I turn into a fanboy. And that ruins everything.
No.
I think it just endears you more to the other person.
No. I never hear back from them again. No, I swear. But then again, it's just very selfish. I understand. It's okay. You know what? There was one that passed away. I'll tell you who it is. Keith Emerson. I became really close with Keith. And having had that previous experience, I never told him how much he meant to me. Just because I didn't want to lose that friendship. But he knows now.
Yeah.
So, Rudy, what is the craziest Spinal Tap moment in your career?
Easy. I mean, there's been a few, but the one that comes back every time you say Spinal Tap would have to be Quiet Riot 1984 tour. Have you ever been to a show that you look at the stage and you go, okay, somebody must have been doing a lot of cocaine to come up with this, right? Because you look at it, you go,
doesn't make
wow,
sense.
there's a lot of stuff up here that it's a cocaine decision. And so basically our staging was like that. I mean, things were built for the stage that we could never find. I mean, we were playing arenas, but the stages, they're pretty much a standard size in an arena because, the rigging and everything with the lights.
Right.
So there was not enough room to put on stage everything that we were carrying around in semis. So these structures just stayed in the semi, until we came back to LA and we got rid of like 3 semis or I think we were down to 1 semi from 5, But how we appeared on stage, Carlos and I, being the guitar player on stage left and me stage right, we had these, and I think maybe even Kevin too in the center. We had these little elevators, and I'm talking little because only our bodies fit right through the rigging, right? That were powered by Black & Decker drills. A drill, right? A drill, and then the drill had a bit, and the bit was attached to a chain, kind of like a bicycle chain that moved this little 1 foot square pedestal that I stood on, and the thing went up like an elevator, right? Every night, the fuse will blow, and I would get stuck halfway between where I'm supposed to be and being like inside of the staging, that production that we had. And it's time sensitive because, all these tours, they have an intro that starts the show, and ours was some hard beating. It was the condition critical tour. So the idea was to have like this boom, 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 like a hard beating. And I knew like after so many heartbeats, I had to be on stage because that's the when the show starts. That's downbeat. Boom, the beginning of the first song. So I would like desperately, I would take the bass and kind of like, put it over, and it's on. It's just making all this noise, and on the very top of the stage where I'm supposed to be. Then I have to crawl out like a groundhog, every single night. you know.
Are you bringing the guitar with you?
Well, I had it with me.
I mean, the bass?
I'm holding it. I'm holding it as I'm going up, because that's supposed to be the dramatic moment that, you know, we're going up with our instruments ready to play, you know. So, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
In the book, you have some great stories about Ozzy tours, like the one in San Francisco at the Cow Palace.
See, that was my original Spinal Tap moment, but it did not really affect me, because all I did was stand there while all this mayhem was going on, you know, because the kabuki curtain did not come down. And I've talked to people about that who were at that show. You know, some of them are famous musicians, and they had no idea what was going on back behind the curtain. God. You know.
So tell our listeners what was going on behind the curtain.
What was going on behind the curtain? Okay, here we go. This is the first night of the Diary of a Madman tour, Cow Palace, December 30,
82?
81.
Okay.
Because, then, you know, it was like 2 days shy of 82. So it's 1981, December 30. And so there was a lot of things that Sharon wanted to accomplish with the tour. And it had the seed went back to when the band played in Indianapolis in the middle of the Blizzard of Oz tour. We were playing in a theater in the square. That was like, and then the Jacksons were playing at the Market Square Arena across the street, which later we played there. But this is the beginning of the 1981 Blizzard of Oz tour. So we go and watch them. You know, we finished our encore, and we ran across the street to where the Jacksons were playing. And we get in and we start watching the show. They were close to the end of their show. And this is where they had like mechanical spiders and all these things on stage. I believe it was the last tour that Michael Jackson did with the Jacksons, 1981. Okay, so Sharon's gets very impressed because they do not do an encore. It was like, wow, this is great. They just finished this awesome set and show is done. No encore. We're going to do that when we do the next tour. So she's got this, you know, she's got a plan, you know. Plan is a major production, you know, take it to the next level. We went from like, you know, like you were talking about before, you know, playing smaller places and having a small or no production to all of a sudden we got a castle on stage. We got a dwarf running around handing drinks to Ozzy and being hung from behind the drum kit. You know, the drum roadie was dressed like a henchman, you know, with a hood on his face, you know, like one of those guillotine guys. You know, it was like a major production. We were all wearing like medieval knights outfits and so on. And so, okay, so how do we start the show? It's got a castle. We just can't like all of a sudden, you know, you walk into the venue and there's a castle. No, we have to like hide this, you know, the production. Okay, so how we're going to do the presentation? So Sharon comes out with all this. I mean, it's really genius because once we went past the first or second show, everything worked like clockwork. Okay, so by the first night, it's like, you know, we had this kabuki curtain, which is basically all the curtain is held by kind of like a shower curtain where it's got holes like loops, and then there is a rod that goes across the stage, and there's a motor where the rod is attached that turns the rod forward. So like the pins that were holding the shower curtain, I mean, it was actually made out of a really nice theater curtain, very nice and thick. And so what it does, it releases the loops and the curtain comes down beautifully. It really, it's almost like unravel, like a, you know, like a flag, you know, really nice. And so that's a really nice effect when it works. When somebody does not forget to plug in the little motor attached to the button that you press and the thing works, right? But they forgot. So, you know, there's an intro, and it's the instrumental intro of Diary of a Madman, the song, which is Randy playing classical guitar. And on cue, when the curtain comes down, it reveals the castle with no drums. The drums are hidden underneath these steps, kind of like a 10-foot high platform with steps. But Ozzy is inside of a throne that was designed by a magician. Yes, they had a magician design this throne and a bunch of other magic stuff, right? That
of course.
Again, that then it never really worked and became part of the tour. But nevertheless, they were paid for, And so here's the throne, and Ozzy is inside of the throne, and what's covering him is like curtains, like these old-fashioned curtains that you pull down, and then when you want them to go back, they roll back the coil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So what do you call those?
Like a shade?
Like shade, yeah, but I wouldn't even think that they make those anymore. But anyways, that one was covering Ozzy inside the throne. So there's one in front of him to cover his torso and his head. There's another one on his lap, and there's two on his legs and on his arms. And there's like a release button that he presses, and all the shades roll back to reveal him. And of course, there's a puff of smoke and fireworks to kind of like reveal the shades going back. So all you see is like smoke, and there's Ozzy, and then he would have a black plexiglass 6-foot tall cross that he would hold. That was part of his shtick, So here's the intro comes on, the lights are blacked out. The whole place is blacked out, and you hear the music, the introduction, and on cue, Ozzy releases the shades, the button of the shades, and he reveals himself, but there's a curtain. The curtain has not come down. And there's music is rolling, which means, again, at some moment, we're going to start playing because it's going to end, And so Ozzy sees the curtain, and he gets off the throne, goes down the steps, grabs the black plexiglass cross, and starts like going at it like, I'm going to use my power to bring you down, definitely. Meanwhile, we're like, Randy and I, we're behind the castle, because we're supposed to appear behind these kind of like a portcullis, where there's like these chains. They're actually plastic links, but it's supposed to look like chains going back, like going up, and we come out of this arch, Randy on one side and me on the other, and we're watching this, and there's mayhem going on backstage because Sharon is like yelling, all this crazy stuff, just beating on the guy who designed the staging. Meanwhile, the intro is still rolling, intro to the stage, and then at some point it stops and there's silence, and you hear the chaos going on backstage, and then you start hearing the boos, because we're not playing, nothing's happened. Now people had no idea what was actually going on behind the curtain, so they had to send up a rigger. A rigger is the guys who do all they go up in the air and put everything together. Those it's specific. They're not really part of the normal crew. They just rig up the production,
or tear it down in this case.
Oh, tear it down. Yeah, exactly. So they had to like wake up a rigger, because usually they are the first ones in the arena to set up all the points where things are going to hang from, and they're the last ones, because they're the ones who dismantle when the stage is clear. That's when you bring it down, right? The trusses and all of that. Mm. So they had to wake up one of the guys, the head rigger, get him up there to go up in a ladder, one of those ladders, up to the truss that held the front lighting rig, which is where the rod was attached, to actually loop by loop undo this curtain. Well, people were booing. And then eventually we start the show again. And it went really well until the last. Okay, so this is the last part of the new production. Ozzy, there was not going to be any encore. Ozzy was going to like go back on
You're
stage.
doing the Jackson thing. Yeah.
We're doing the Jackson thing. So this is what's going to happen. We finished the song Paranoid, which once Paranoid is played, that's it. It's over. So we get off the stage and here's the plan. There's a plan. Ozzy is going to get on a gauntlet, one of those medieval knights gloves that comes from underneath the drum riser. The thing has like a gate that opens up, and this is before Game of Thrones. I mean, so this was pretty genius, for 1981, actually. This thing is the size of a Cadillac. You can't miss it. It's huge. So Ozzy's supposed to get on the gauntlet, and the gauntlet goes up in the air, and out of the fingers come out meat, like raw meat, into the audience. That's the finale, right?
Like a meat grinder? Like it's just kind of spewing up and out?
It was basically whatever was left over from the crew meal. Throw it at the
Bologna,
audience, right?
salami.
Yeah, all of that. Yes, a lot of salami, bologna. Well, actually, eventually we had the dwarf. We got rid of that gauntlet. But anyways, let me finish this, and then I'll tell you what happened afterwards. So there was so much smoke on stage, and this thing is the size of a Cadillac, that Ozzy could not find the gauntlet. And it's on stage. So it's like wandering around the stage, blowing up smoke, because he can't even see in front of himself. And so he decides, he says, screw this. He gets off the stage and just goes back to the dressing room. And that was the end of the show. And people were not happy.
Were they booing again?
They were booing, and then they met us backstage, when because we didn't have the tour bus, since we were going to pick up the tour bus. When, like a week later, when we continued the tour after the following night's New Year's Eve show. And then I think we did another show in the area, and then that's when we pick up the buses. So we were traveling in limos. So, if you're in a bus, you can hide in your bunk and nobody sees you. But if you're in a limo, people see you. So we're leaving the venue, we're going up the ramps, and here's the crowd. And they're beating on the limo, giving us the finger. They weren't happy with what they experienced. And then and like I mentioned, they eventually got rid of that gauntlet and had that little John, the small person, drag a yellow bucket of with the raw meat across the stage while we were playing Paranoid, which was the encore. Yeah, the encore came back.
Oh, good.
But so did the meat, flying meat. And there's nothing like playing on stage. Look, the first half of the song, the meat goes into the audience. Second half of the song, you try to avoid, comes back at you. So you gotta be like avoiding getting hit by frozen gizzards and liver and kidneys and whatever, because most of the stuff, crew meal was not enough to fill the bucket, so they would send out a runner to go to the grocery store and get some meat, raw meat, and it was still frozen by the time it was thrown into the audience.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
You've taken so much of your time, and it's been so wonderful. I do have like two other quick statements. Okay. I remember the woman that you brought to the radio station that night, and I was happy to find out that that's still Rebecca.
Oh yeah,
your wife. Yeah. So she's
36 years. Yeah.
Wonderful, and that's so great. The other thing is, I noticed that you do a lot of stuff for animals, and I really love and admire that. You have like a Yorkie rescue, or you help people find and place animals?
Well, what I do is, I know personally certain rescues and people that are involved, but the real heroes are the people who run these organizations. I just create awareness for, like, let's say, for example, Linda Blair. She's got her organization, and I got to tell you, it's a 24/7 with her. I know other friends that I have with other rescues, and again, they live it. They live it. What I do, I create awareness. So they are the real heroes.
Yeah. That's great stuff.
Yeah.
What do you have going on to keep you busy now? That where can people find you? And I know you got your radio show on Sirius and
Monsters of Rock Radio.
Actually, Monster on Dash, and now we've added it to Spotify. So
cool.
selected episodes can be heard on Spotify. We're building the catalog, and it's actually it's a broadcast, which I really love because originally it was a podcast, and it's podcast is such a kind of like going to Costco and trying to find something. There's a lot of stuff going on.
There is.
Yeah, but if it's a broadcast that you have to it's part of a network on a big station like Monsters of Rock Radio. Yeah, we have over 500,000 listeners per episode per broadcast. Around the world. And so it's a little bit different. And what I love about it is, you guys come from terrestrial radio, right? KLOS. If you were into rock, which most of the people that I know from LA, if you were into rock, you were listening to KLOS in the 80s and the 70s and, and so on. And we will all resonate with listening to the same music at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You could be going down the freeway and you look to your right or your left when that part in the air tonight, when it's coming. And it's listening to the radio when you see everybody else in their own cars doing the same thing at the same time. And to me, that is what a beautiful experience that is, to be listening to music and know that the masses are listening to the same thing. And we're all in the same, vibrating at the same frequency from it.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Could talk with you for forever and for hours. But, it's a podcast and we got to keep it somewhat short. Yeah. But thank you so much. Where can people get a hold of you? Where can people get a hold of you and find you? And if people want to get this book.
I'm usually I'm usually at the Woodland Hills Costco every Tuesday morning, just doing some shopping. So if they really want to get a hold of me, I'm there. Yeah,
keep you on that word on that.
Yeah, usually around the almond milk section in the back. Yeah, I do a lot of hanging around there. But seriously, I don't know. It's just Rudy Sarzo. I'm on Spotify for my show, on Monsters of Rock Radio, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
And we'll post that on our website. And also, we didn't even mention, unfortunately, but you're now with the Guess Who.
Yes.
After 2017 was it that you joined them?
I can tell by how many times I played at the Epcot Center in Orlando,
in Florida, at Walt Disney World.
Disney World in Florida, and I've done it 4 times. So this year is my 5th year.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rudy, for your time and for being such a kind, wonderful person. Because you've always been present with people, which is something that I really. I remembered from back in the 80s at KLOS and, even today. You're
real, authentic.
Yeah.
So are you both. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well. Thank you so much.
Bless. Bye-bye. Thank you.
So there's our interview with Rudy Sarzo. And, I had only wished that I was in the audience when that meat was being thrown out because...
Could you imagine? There was one story in the book where he's talking about it was like an eel or some sort of fish that wrapped around a woman's head, I think. She's screaming, get us out of here.
When it comes to Ozzy, nothing is surprising, and yet it's just so much fun to listen to because I guess we weren't there.
I wonder, how they got through that legally. I'm sure they stopped soon after. Would
highly suspect that they asked for forgiveness later. One of those things. Special thanks to Rudy Sarzo for spending part of his day with us.
Thank you, Rudy.
Don't forget Rudy's book, Off the Rails Aboard the Crazy Train in the Blizzard of Oz, can be found on Amazon, paperback or Kindle. And we're pretty sure if you meet up with him at the Woodland Hills Costco, he'll be willing to sign it for you.
Yeah, he's a pretty good guy. You can also follow Rudy on Instagram, sarzo.rudy. Facebook, official Rudy Sarzo. And on Twitter, at Rudy Sarzo.
And go to our website to check out our show notes. There you can find interesting notes and subjects about things that were talked about in today's show, including Rudy's videos, some crazy Ozzy pictures there from the tour he was talking about. And you can find those show notes at rockandrollconfessional.rocks. We always welcome our new listeners. We thank you for tuning in, whatever country you listen to our show in. Please rate, subscribe, forward, help send us off to your friends. Write a quick review, whatever you can do. All right, Reitz, give us the trivia question again.
All right. Rudy has a brother named Robert. What band did they play in together? Was it Quiet Riot, Ozzy's band, Whitesnake, or Jeff Tate after he left Queensryche? You got an answer?
I was trying to remember because Rudy was with Quiet Riot 3 different times.
Yeah.
Beginning, middle, when they were big, and then he kind of went back, I think, a little bit later. That might have been after Kevin left. I can't remember. I'm going to say Queensryche.
You got it. Jeff
Really?
Tate's Queensryche. Yeah. Now, what's interesting to note is that Robert was supposed to play in Ozzy's band right after the death of Randy Rhoads. They tried him out. He passed all the auditions. He was basically the guy. But then what happened? The manager, Don Arden, who is Sharon's father, he, unbeknownst to everybody else, had already picked a guy and already paid him up front. So Robert didn't get to play in the band. And
really?
Yeah, it was pretty kind of sad. But, he did okay. He's a really good guitarist, and he had his own band called Hurricane, which I remember playing on KLOS too. So
early 80s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All good.
Beautiful. Nice job, Reitz. Hey, please follow us, like us, share us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram. And keep listening because we got some more good stuff coming up real soon.
That's right. Thank you, CW. Have
2 weeks, everybody.
Yeah. Have a good day there, CW.
You too. Peace out.
Bye-bye.
La, 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 la.